meet you.
Thank you.
First of all, just really quick summary. Who are you? What's the aim of the company at the moment? Whereabouts are you located?
Okay, so I'm the Chief Geologist for Mawson Gold, and we've got our main project in northern Finland on the Arctic Circle, and we're actually in the stages at the moment of doing a PEA. So we've got just over a million ounce resource, gold equivalent, and we're looking at the feasibility of where that's going to go and whether it's going to turn into a mine with any luck.
Awesome. All right, well, we will get into the details of the deposit, but we're quite lucky. We're at PDAC at the core shack, so not going to waste an opportunity to go look at some rocks. So we'll switch over and we'll look at some rocks right now. Fantastic.
So now we're here at the core display, and what we've got in front of us here is a series of drill core that's representative of our resources in Finland. So going basically from over here at the top left is some albite altered rocks, and then we go through the mineralised packages, and this one here is part of what's known as South Polocus, and it's significant because there's 30 metres at 5 grams equivalent. That is the deepest hole on the prospect at South Polocus, but it's basically open, so we have no idea how this improves at depth, but we hope it does. There are also some other samples here, including albite altered hanging wall rocks from the Raya prospect, and that lies above an intersection of 30 metres at 9 grams equivalent. And the rocks you can actually see in here are micaceous sulfidic rocks, and within that is some visible gold and scheelite. Below those mineralised rocks we have calcsilicate rocks and quartz muscovite rocks. And somewhat unusually, the next sample along here is an anhydrite bearing rock, and we're not sure whether that's hydrothermal or evaporite hosted anhydrite, but it occurs down plunge from the mineralisation. And then along the bottom here is something slightly different. There's actually around 5 metres here of 0.5% copper, and it's with this magnesian orthoamphibole rock. And then there's a normal moving along here through all the pyrrhotite bearing material with chlorite alteration. And then there's an amphibolite and what's actually the world's oldest oil. These are pyrobitumen rocks that are around 2 billion years. And unusually, those rocks contain an abundance of weird transition metals, including copper, cobalt, zinc, molybdenum, vanadium, chromium. And the neighbour to this rock significantly contains over 1,200 ppm nickel and 0.24 ppm palladium. And these rocks are caught up in primitive ultramafic, so an interesting copper-nickel sort of sideline to the project. Okay, so here's an example of the South Polocus mineralisation. This is a biotite quartz white mica rock. The host rocks are amphibolite facies, but these are actually slightly retrogressed, and that was associated with the emplacement of the gold. Significantly, there's over 30 grams of gold in the metre intersection that this comes from, and around 720 ppm cobalt. And the cobalt minerals in the project are typically cobaltite, linnaeite, and cobaltian pentlandite. We do see visible gold in samples like this, but most of it is relatively fine grained, but is free gold caught up on the grain boundaries between either silicates or sulfides. So just a brief overview here of the poster display behind our drill core. So in terms of corporate overview, so our project here in northern Finland, 100% owned. And we also have a project to the west in Sweden. And our third project that is listed on the ASX, and Mawson owns 60% of that, is known as Southern Cross Gold. And we recently had a spectacular result, 119 metres at 3.2 grams in the Victorian stuff. So what we will do from here is we will cover off the Rajapalot project in the next posters. Okay, so here we are on a beautiful spring day in northern Finland on the Arctic Circle. And we're going to talk about the second project area here in our Rompus Rajapalot area. So we're on the Arctic Circle, and we have about 1.04 million ounces of gold equivalent, so that's 3 grams per tonne. 2.5 grams of gold and 443 ppm cobalt makes up that resource. And at the moment, we're actually involved in the preliminary economic assessment. So we're looking at geometry, metallurgy, and how we would actually produce a mine in this region. Cobalt is a strategic mineral for Finland. They have 10% of the world's cobalt supply is refined through Finland. And one great thing about the project, we have significant local support from landholders and from the local municipality and the local politicians. So a really important part is the social permit to explore, and we have that certainly in this region. In terms of the resources, they were created by making separate gold and cobalt wireframes and then running individual assessment of the gold and cobalt contents of those wireframes across the different prospects. And we actually modelled different open cut options and also underground only options. And essentially there are a bunch of northwest plunging shoots of mineralisation that make up our 1 million ounces. Okay, so one of the great things about being a geologist is you get to make great block diagrams, and we've had some great help from our consultants who have produced some three-dimensional images of what might go on in our prospects. And sure, it's complicated in terms of the three-dimensional folding, but what is sort of unusual, I suppose, is that the gold itself ends up in sublinear trends, and that actually makes the understanding the gold mineralisation perhaps a lot easier than the complexity that you would see in the host rocks here. So we're lucky to have a great team of consultants and local staff up in Rovaniemi in northern Finland. We've got great facilities for logging corps. It is really a beautiful place to work, both in spring and also you have the chance to see fantastic auroras in winter. We've got great coverage of ground geophysics and have done lots of interpretations of different varieties. And also all of our drill cores have multi-element ICP-MS, and so we're able to see the relationship of all the elements involved with the primary metals, which are gold and cobalt in the system. Thanks very much for listening in.